Hey everyone, I'm Mike from theparkprodigy.com, and on today's video, we're going to break down exactly how you should use the Disney Genie Plus over at Disney's Hollywood Studios. And this park is extremely popular, and I would say this might be the most important park to really have a strategy when using the Disney Genie Plus. So if you are in the process of planning a Walt Disney World trip and you plan to use the Disney Genie Plus over at Hollywood Studios, just be sure to stick around until the end of this video, as we will get you as prepared as possible to do just that. As always, I'm very excited, so let's go get started. Thank you all again so much for checking out this video. Like I said, we are about to break down the ultimate strategy for using Disney Genie Plus over at Hollywood Studios. And if you've been watching our channel, we are slowly but surely hitting all 4 of the Walt Disney World parks, giving you pretty much what our Disney Plus strategy would be. And for this video, I'm not going to get too much into the details and like the basics on the Disney Genie Plus, because I just did that in the strategy for Disney's Magic Kingdom video. So if you do need, a little bit more information on exactly what the Disney Genie Plus is, or how it works, pricing, stuff like that, just go and watch that video that we released a couple weeks ago. But we're going to jump right in, and I am going to touch on a couple of the basics. But of course, following right up, I am going to cover a little bit, just very basic stuff for the Disney Genie Plus. And of course, Disney Genie Plus is the pay-to-play system over at Walt Disney World. It essentially allows you to skip the lines, and by purchasing the Disney Genie Plus, guests can make reservations to access the quote-unquote lightning lane, which are essentially faster lines than the regular standby line. Now, of course, it's important to note that not all attractions are included in the regular Disney Genie Plus. For instance, over at Hollywood Studios, Star Wars Rise of the Resistance does have an individual lightning lane, which is essentially an additional cost from the regular Disney Genie Plus. And last but not least, guests can hold one lightning lane reservation at a time for the Disney Genie Plus, and then one individual lightning lane at a time. And the exception for the Disney Genie Plus is if your lightning lane is more than 2 hours away, once 2 hours passes, you can essentially make another individual lightning lane reservation. So let's start to jump into the attractions. And again, one of the main reasons why Disney's Hollywood Studios is such an important park to have a game plan when it comes to the Disney Genie Plus is just because there's not a lot of attractions. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. They really do have, some of the most popular attractions in all of Walt Disney World, right? So when you look at the rides and when you look at that dynamic, what happens is typically, because there's fewer attractions, but they're really popular, that leads to longer average wait time. But let's jump in and let's look at which attractions are not included. And if you go and you watch that Magic Kingdom video, there was a bunch of attractions that were not included with Disney Genie Plus. Over at Hollywood Studios, it's really not like that too much. We would say almost every attraction is included, to be honest with you, except for, of course, individual lightning lane is going to be Star Wars Rise of the Resistance. We have the Lightning McQueen Racing Academy. We have Vacation Fun, which is like a little short with Mickey and Minnie. We have Disney Movie Magic. We have Fantasmic, which is the very popular nighttime show. We have Wonderful World of Animation. And then a majority of the character meet and greets are not included at Hollywood Studios. And you'll see, very different from some of the other parks, character meet and greets can be included with the Disney Genie Plus. So if that is a big priority for your family, make sure that you take advantage of that, especially if you're paying the pay to skip the line service. Okay, so now which rides should you prioritize over at Disney's Hollywood Studios? And what we're doing for this is, again, we're going to break down the average wait times for the rides. We're breaking it down over the last 30 days to just give you an insight on where we're getting the data from. But again, when even though it's the past 30 days, for the most part, typically what will happen is these average wait times, let's say from the most popular rides down to the least popular rides, will be very consistent throughout the year, right? So you can use this as your strategy. And again, you'll see the reason why it's important is because, of course, if it has a higher average wait time, then you would want to use your Disney Genie Plus service at those rides. So we're starting with the most popular ride, and that is Slinky Dog Dash, which has an average wait time of 109 minutes. Then we have Rise of the Resistance, again, which is included in the individual lightning lane, and that is going to be 88 minutes. We have Rock and Roller Coaster at 77 minutes. We have Toy Story Mania at 72 minutes. We have Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run at 66 minutes. Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway at 65 minutes. We have the Tower of Terror at 63 minutes. Meet Disney Stars at the Red Carpet that is 40 minutes. Alien Swirling Saucers, 39 minutes. Meet Olaf, 36 minutes, and then Star Tours coming in last at 19 minutes. There are additional rides and attractions that aren't included with the Disney Genie Plus over at Hollywood Studios, but the wait times, either they weren't significant enough or they were shows, which is kind of tough to figure out a wait time because it's pretty much when the shows are running throughout the day. All right, so now the next thing that's important, now that we know, okay, so we have the average wait times, right? It is important to note that the Disney Genie Plus can sell out. So that means that you do have to prioritize, if you have your heart, let's say, set on Slinky Dog Dash, you do have to prioritize that ride over some of the other rides, because if it sells out, that's it. You won't be able to get a Disney Genie Plus Lightning Lane for that day, right? So what are the average wait times for these rides? Okay, so starting with Slinky Dog Dash, we do have an average wait time of 2:19 in the afternoon, and this is by far one of the earliest average sellout times of any ride in all of Walt Disney World. Over to Rise of the Resistance, we do have 7:18 at night. Rock and Roller Coaster, we have 7:01 at night. Toy Story Mania, we have 8:17. Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, we have 8:30 at night. Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, we have 8:04 at night. The Tower of Terror, we have 7:43 at night. Alien Sorcerers, we have 8:30 at night. I skipped Meet Disney Stars at the red carpet because that's not included with the Disney Genie Plus, so just keep that in mind. You do have to go and wait on that line if you do want to partake in the character meet and greets, but Olaf is included with the Disney Genie Plus. Meet Olaf, and that average sellout time is 5:31 there. And then Star Tours is going to be actually, Star Tours doesn't have an average sellout time. Man, that ride really was so popular in the 90s and early 2000s just because it was the only Star Wars ride, but now the entire Galaxy's Edge. So I think the biggest takeaway from this, right, is that when you look at the average sellout times and then you go and you look at the character meet and greet with Olaf, and we even talked about this in the Magic Kingdom video, that the character meet and greets, although you're not going to save as much time as the rides, they sell out faster. So again, this is when the game plan is kind of coming into play, and you do have to have a strategy going in and try to figure out, okay, well, maybe you're not that into the rides, right? Or maybe you only ride you want to go on is Star Tours. You're better off using it at the character meet and greet for Olaf in that situation. The other thing I'll say too about Hollywood Studios compared to some of the other Walt Disney World parks is because of the shows, can get a little tricky. Specifically, again, the shows aren't going to run, let's say, until park closing. Of course, Fantasmic is, but again, the shows that are included with the Disney Genie Plus, such as, let's say, Indiana Jones, Beauty and the Beast, the Frozen sing-along, right? They're not going to be going on, or they're not going to be until park close. So you have to take that into account if you plan to use a Disney Genie Plus at those shows. They're going to sell out, or the last time you'll be able to grab a Disney Genie Plus for those shows is going to be earlier in the day. So again, these are like all the little nuances that come into play when using the system. All right, so now the main point, and then the main reason why everyone is here, how would we tackle using the Disney Genie Plus at Disney's Hollywood Studios? And again, I'm going to break this down a couple different ways. The first way is going to be if we are rope dropping, which means we're showing up at park opening, and then again, rope dropping if we're staying at a Disney World hotel. And this is important because the individual Lightning Lane, so specifically for Hollywood Studios, it's going to be Rise of the Resistance, opens up at 7 a.m. For guests staying at Walt Disney World hotels. So if you're not staying at a Disney World hotel, you cannot grab an individual Lightning Lane for Rise of the Resistance until the park opens. For Disney Genie Plus, all the rides become available at 7 a.m., which means you have to be ready to roll at 7 a.m. on the My Disney Experience app. So now, what strategy would I personally take if I was going to Hollywood Studios and I was rope dropping and really trying to get the most out of my day? And for this strategy, I am going to be upgrading, and I'm going to be purchasing the Disney Genie Plus, and I also am going to be purchasing an individual Lightning Lane at Rise of the Resistance. So from a monetary standpoint, this is going to be the most expensive way to hit the parks. But again, in my opinion, this is going to get you on the most rides the quickest. So I'm just being very upfront about what I believe works the best. To do that. Again, in my opinion, what I would do is I would go and I would definitely grab a regular Disney Genie Plus for Slinky Dog Dash. Then I would go and I would grab an individual Lightning Lane for Star Wars Rise of the Resistance. And then what this will allow me to do is rope drop Tower of Terror, and then Rock and Roller Coaster. I'd probably do Rock and Roller Coaster, then Tower of Terror first. The only thing I will say, the caveat about this game plan is that you're hitting really two very, very aggressive rides very early in the morning in Tower of Terror and Rock and Roller Coaster. So I will say that. But again, when you break down the average wait times, and let's say you're grabbing Slinky Dog Dash, which is an average wait time of 109 minutes, you're individually lightning laning Rise of the Resistance, which is 88 minutes, Rock and Roller Coaster 77 minutes, and then Tower of Terror is 63 minutes. So you could see like those are by far, some of the, honestly, Slinky Dog, Rise, and Rock and Roller Coaster are the three biggest average wait times. So if you're getting that stuff out of the way using, the skip the line system, my opinion is your day is going to be set up for that much more success. And again, the other thing to keep in mind too is the reason why I'm saying do Rock and Roller Coaster and then Tower of Terror, as opposed to doing Rock and Roller Coaster and then next average wait time on the list would be Toy Story Mania at 72 minutes, is because Rock and Roller Coaster and Tower of Terror are just right next to each other. If you're not familiar with the Disney parks, it's just more of a, strategically, these two rides are right next to each other. It just makes the most sense to do those two together. On the flip side, now the next strategy would be, let's say that you don't want to do the individual lightning lane for Rise of the Resistance. You don't want to pay that. You only want to pay for the regular Disney Genie Plus. Then what I would do is I would go and I would still try to get the Disney Genie Plus lightning lane for Slinky Dog Dash, and I would rope drop Rise of the Resistance and then Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. And again, same thing. Reason why we're doing that is because they're in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and they are right next to each other. It just makes the most sense. We also did a video a while back on if you should rope drop Rise of the Resistance. And what we found in that video was, online, some people will say, no, you don't rope drop because everyone's going there. The other important thing to keep in mind too is that guests staying at a Walt Disney World hotel do get in a half hour early. I would say my honest opinion is if you're using my first strategy, it does not matter if you're staying at a Disney World hotel or you're not. Most people, if they're staying at a Disney World hotel, are probably going to Rise of the Resistance, and that's why I would say do the opposite. Go to Tower of Terror and to Rock and Roller Coaster, even if you're not getting that extra half hour. But again, I would also just rope drop Rise of the Resistance, even if you're not getting that extra half hour and you don't want to pay for the individual lightning lane. And when we looked at the data, what we found was, yes, essentially you want to rope drop this ride or you want to come back and visit this ride as late at night as possible. But my biggest thing for that was, especially with this ride is always going down. There's always problems with this ride. So I would rather try earlier in the day, and maybe it is down early in the morning, and then you can, then you come back at night. But I just don't trust that strategy, and I would rather just wait for this ride in the morning and then plan around it, go to see Fantasmic or do something else. The other thing I will say too is that specifically if you're using this strategy, it's very important to note that for the most part, you're almost guaranteed that your Slinky Dog Dash return time is going to be more than 2 hours away. What that means is that Slinky Dog Dash is pretty much the main ride that you're going to use your Disney Genie Plus for, and then you're going to have to wait 2 hours to then make another selection, because the way it works is you can have one individual, ride at a time, then you go on that ride and then boom, you can make your next selection. But if you're waiting more than 2 hours, like I said earlier in the video, you can make another, Disney Genie Plus and have two at that point in time. What I would try to do is if you definitely have Slinky Dog Dash, it's been more than 2 hours, you can try to get your other Disney Lightning Lane at, let's say, at that point, Toy Story Mania, because again, strategy, when you go to Slinky Dog Dash, maybe you can time it where both of your lightning lanes are around the same time, and you can then just go and hop onto Toy Story Mania. All right, so that is pretty much our strategy, everyone. So some of the other important tips and tricks to keep in mind when using the Disney Genie Plus at Hollywood Studios is if you can have two people, especially if you're using the first strategy, where you're going to do Slinky Dog Dash and then Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, try to have two people grab these at the same time, right? You can do that on the Disney Genie Plus app. The other important thing is if you plan to stay in the parks late, be sure, don't forget, like I said, that you do have the amazing nighttime show Fantasmic. So keep that in mind as you're planning your day. And of course, like I said, don't forget to take the proximity of the rides into account as you are coming up with that strategy to use the Disney Genie Plus. And then another one is that you can modify your Disney Genie Plus time. That's something that's fairly new in the past couple months, so keep that in mind. And then I did mention it, but don't forget about the shows. This is really one of my favorite things about Hollywood Studios. The Frozen show, the Frozen sing-along show is by far one of my favorite shows in all of Walt Disney World. I actually think I like this show more than Fantasmic, but don't kill me for saying that. But it's just a lot of fun, especially if you like the movie Frozen and you like the soundtrack. That is the complete guide / strategy to using the Disney Genie Plus at Hollywood Studios. I really hope that you found this video helpful. And again, if you are in the process of planning a Walt Disney World trip and you do need a little additional help, just be sure to go check out our website, theparkprodigy.com. But I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you all again so much for checking out this video. And until next time, I will talk to you soon.